Welcome back, everyone, and have you ever wondered if a small copper coin sitting quietly in your drawer, piggy bank, or pocket change could turn out to be worth millions of dollars, changing your life overnight? Because today we are diving deep into one of the most fascinating stories in the world of rare coins, the 1953 wheat penny that shocked collectors, investors, and auction houses when a particular error-filled specimen sold for an incredible $21 million. And while most people see a penny as almost worthless in daily life, this one-cent coin struck at the Denver Mint has captured global attention because of its unique set of mistakes, minting quirks, and conditions that made it so special. So as you join us on this exciting journey, make sure you stay tuned because we will uncover not just the history of this coin, but also the types of mint errors it could possibly have, how collectors spot them, why rarity fuels the incredible value, and how the smallest differences, invisible to the casual eye, can mean the difference between a coin worth 1 cent and a coin worth a fortune. And while we go through this epic story, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and keep supporting so we can bring you more amazing discoveries. Now let's get into it, because the tale of the 1953 wheat penny is unlike anything you might expect. It begins with the United States Mint in the early 1950s, when the country was booming after World War II, and pennies were being struck in massive quantities at facilities in Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco, with billions rolling out of presses, and normally these coins were produced with relative precision. Yet the Denver Mint was notorious in the 1950s for high-speed production runs, which sometimes led to unusual striking issues, doubling, die cracks, off-center strikes, planchet errors, and a range of imperfections that went largely unnoticed at the time because these coins were destined for circulation. But fast forward to decades later, and collectors who study every detail of coins began to realize that some of these minor imperfections were actually extraordinary treasures. And in the case of the 1953 wheat penny, a specimen turned up with an almost unbelievable combination of errors, beginning with its double die obverse, where the date 1953 and the lettering "In God We Trust" appeared to be doubled under magnification. Then add to that a repunched mint mark where the D had been struck more than once, creating a shadow-like effect. And to make it even stranger, this coin was struck slightly off-center, giving it a unique crescent-shaped rim. But the list doesn't stop there, because this penny also showed signs of being struck on a transitional planchet, possibly left over from another year's run, meaning its metal composition was slightly different than expected, giving it a distinctive coloration and weight. And when a coin like this combines multiple rare errors in one single specimen, its value skyrockets, because collectors understand how impossible it is for such a combination to survive mint inspection and enter circulation. Yet somehow this penny did, and for decades it passed through countless hands, maybe sitting in someone's change jar or being spent at a candy store, until finally a sharp-eyed collector noticed its peculiar features and sent it for authentication, where grading experts confirmed that this was not just an ordinary wheat penny but a once-in-a-lifetime minting miracle. And when it finally hit the auction block, it stunned the numismatic community by reaching an astronomical sale price of $21 million, making it one of the most expensive error coins in history. And what makes this story so captivating is that it could happen to anyone, because millions of 1953 pennies still exist in collections, drawers, and rolls. And while most are worth only a few cents, the possibility of another extreme error lurking in the shadows keeps collectors searching tirelessly, inspecting dates, mint marks, and surfaces under magnification, hoping to discover a hidden gem. And it's not just about money, it's about the thrill of history, the sense of holding in your hand a small artifact that passed through the lives of everyday people in the 1950s and beyond, carrying stories of the past while secretly containing an unimaginable fortune. And let's not forget the psychology of collecting, because when you have an item that is both unique and historically significant, the bidding wars among wealthy collectors and investors push the price into realms that seem impossible. But as we've seen with rare coins, art, and collectibles, people will pay incredible amounts for items that no one else in the world possesses, and the 1953 D Wheat Penny fits perfectly into that category. Now, to truly appreciate why this coin is so valuable, let's explore more deeply the types of errors that can occur during minting, starting with doubled dies, which happen when the hub imprints a design more than once at slightly different angles, creating letters and numbers that look doubled, and collectors love doubled dies because they are highly visible and dramatic. Then we have repunched mint marks, which occur when the mint mark punch is applied multiple times before being finalized, creating an overlapping appearance. And these are especially sought after in Denver issues because the D mint mark was hand punched in those years, meaning human error played a role. Next are off-center strikes, where the blank planchet is not seated correctly in the press, causing the design to be misaligned. And the more dramatic the off-center, the rarer the coin, though one showing the full date and mint mark remain most desirable. Then, there are transitional errors, where the coin is struck on a planchet from a different year's composition, such as leftover blanks with different metal alloys. And when authenticated, these are some of the rarest errors possible. And when you combine all these into one coin, as in the case of the record-breaking 1953 D penny, you get an absolute numismatic phenomenon. And as word spread about this penny, collectors began revisiting their own holdings, re-examining rolls of wheat cents from bank vaults, estate sales, and inherited collections, leading to new discoveries of minor varieties that added further excitement to the market. And in turn, this demand fueled even higher prices, creating a cycle where rarity and desirability fed each other, pushing coins that once seemed ordinary into the spotlight. And while the exact $21 million price tag shocked many, experts agree that when two or more passionate collectors with deep pockets compete at auction, the final hammer price can reach stratospheric levels, especially if the coin is unique and certified in a top grade. Because condition is another crucial factor, with coins graded mint state or higher commanding premium prices, and this legendary 1953 D specimen was preserved in astonishing condition, showing minimal wear despite being decades old, which only added to its mystique. Now let's imagine for a moment the journey of this coin, struck in 1953 at the Denver Mint, slipping past inspectors, entering circulation, perhaps being used to buy soda or candy, traveling across states in people's pockets, then disappearing into a jar or drawer for decades before resurfacing. And how many times did someone look at it and fail to notice its extraordinary errors, until finally it reached someone knowledgeable enough to recognize its true nature? And this is why coin collecting is so exciting, because hidden treasures may still be out there waiting to be found. And every time you receive change, every time you sort through an old roll of pennies, you might be holding a piece of history worth more than most luxury homes. And while not every 1953 D Wheat penny is worth millions, some are still highly collectible in circulated and uncirculated condition, with certain minor errors bringing hundreds or thousands of dollars. So it pays to examine them carefully. And for those dreaming of striking it rich with coins, the lesson here is to learn, study, and never underestimate the smallest details, because in numismatics details are everything, and the tiniest die crack, misplaced mint mark, or unusual coloration can turn a common coin into a once-in-a-lifetime discovery. And as the fascination with rare coins grows, more people are entering the hobby, not just for profit, but for the thrill of the hunt, the connection to history, and the chance to hold in their hands something truly irreplaceable. And in the case of the 1953 D Wheat penny, it represents the ultimate dream realized, a 1-cent coin transformed into a $21 million marvel. And with stories like this inspiring collectors worldwide, the hunt for errors and varieties continues stronger than ever. Next, 1945 Wheat penny. Today we are going to unravel the incredible story of the 1945 Wheat penny, a coin that has shocked collectors and enthusiasts across the globe, with reports of examples valued as high as $6 million due to its extraordinary errors, mistakes, and unique characteristics that set it apart from ordinary pennies minted in that year. So sit back and get ready for a journey that blends history, mystery, and the thrill of unimaginable fortune as we take you through every possible reason why this small piece of copper could hold such jaw-dropping value. Because when it comes to coin collecting, every tiny detail counts, every scratch tells a story, and every error can transform something worth 1 cent into something worth millions. And the 1945 wheat penny is one of those legendary examples that continues to astonish even the most experienced numismatists. Beginning with the historical context of its creation during the final months of World War II, when the United States Mint was producing billions of wheat pennies to support the wartime economy. But despite the enormous production numbers, certain mistakes slipped through the cracks, and those mistakes are the very reason why this coin can command such astronomical prices today. So let us begin by understanding that the standard 1945 wheat penny was supposed to be struck in bronze alloy composed of about 95% copper and 5% zinc and tin. But due to resource demands and the complexity of minting during wartime, some coins were accidentally struck on steel planchets left over from the 1943 steel cents experiment, creating a rare error known as a wrong planchet strike. And finding a 1945 wheat penny struck on steel instead of copper would be like winning the lottery, since only a handful are believed to exist, with collectors willing to pay millions for such a mistake because of its historical rarity and the sheer improbability of survival. And beyond planchet composition, the 1945 pennies are also known for double die errors, where the design was accidentally impressed twice on the die at slightly different angles, producing dramatic doubling visible in areas like the motto, "In God We Trust," the word liberty, or the date itself. And these doubled dies can be extremely valuable depending on the strength of the doubling, sometimes creating a coin that looks almost like two overlapping images, which is a dream find for collectors who are always scanning coins with magnifying glasses in hopes of spotting these anomalies. And then there are repunched mint marks, especially on coins minted in Denver and San Francisco in 1945, where the mint mark was hand-punched into the die and sometimes corrected or repositioned, leading to visible traces of multiple mint marks on the same coin. And while many repunched mint marks might bring a modest premium, extremely dramatic examples can catapult the value of the coin into astronomical ranges, particularly when combined with other errors. And then we also need to consider off-center strikes, broad strikes, die cracks, die breaks, cuts, and lamination errors, all of which were not uncommon during the high-speed minting of the wartime period, but when preserved in uncirculated or mint state condition can become breathtakingly valuable. And a coin showing multiple such errors at once can be considered a holy grail in numismatics, often fetching prices that seem unbelievable to outsiders, but make perfect sense to those who know how error rarity works. And when you bring all these possibilities together, the 1945 wheat penny transforms from an everyday coin that once filled pockets and cash registers across America into a legendary collectible capable of fetching $6 million. Because rarity drives value, and error rarity especially creates unique one-of-a-kind specimens that no other collector can duplicate, which means fierce bidding wars at auctions where wealthy investors, museums, and elite collectors are willing to pour fortunes into securing a coin that represents both history and a tangible piece of numismatic art. And let us not forget that condition plays a crucial role too, because most 1945 pennies spent decades in circulation, wearing down under constant use. So finding one in pristine uncirculated condition is already rare, but when you pair such condition with major minting errors, the result is a coin that could be valued higher than luxury cars, mansions, or even fine art paintings. And imagine the thrill of holding a coin that once bought a stick of gum now being worth more than a private island. This is why collectors love these stories, and why the 1945 wheat penny continues to be a coin of legend. And as we peel back more layers, we find that beyond the errors themselves, There is also the context of 1945 being such a pivotal year in history with the end of World War II, the shift of global power, and the beginning of a new era for the United States, making coins from this year emotionally significant as well, which adds another dimension of demand since collectors often prize coins tied to historic milestones, and the 1945 penny fits that bill perfectly, symbolizing resilience, transition, and post-war prosperity. And while most 1945 pennies might be worth only a few cents or a couple of dollars, the rarest error examples push the boundary into millions, because they represent both historical rarity and the unpredictability of human error combined with machinery limits of the time. So it is not just a coin, it is a time capsule, a mistake frozen in metal that now commands reverence and awe. And if we imagine the possible combinations that could exist, like a 1945 steel planchet penny with a double die obverse, struck off center, with a repunched mint mark and preserved in mint state condition, we begin to see how such a coin could easily justify a $6 million price tag, because it would be literally unique, one of one in the world, and that kind of uniqueness is what makes collectors battle with wallets wide open. And this is the essence of numismatics, where the tiniest imperfections create the greatest treasures. And what makes this story even more exciting is that such coins are still out there waiting to be discovered, because many error coins went unnoticed by the public and ended up stashed in jars, drawers, and old collections where someone today could stumble upon them and suddenly be holding a fortune without even realizing it. And this is why we encourage viewers to always check their pocket change, their old family coin jars, or inherited collections, because you never know if that ordinary-looking wheat penny might be the $6 million superstar hiding in plain sight. And the thrill of the hunt is part of what makes coin collecting so addictive and rewarding, because each coin tells a story, and each error magnifies that story into something legendary. And the 1945 wheat penny is the perfect embodiment of this phenomenon. From its wartime origins to its accidental mistakes to its transformation into a multi-million-dollar treasure that continues to capture imaginations around the world. And when we zoom out and look at the bigger picture, we see how coins like this are not just about money but about history, art, craftsmanship, and the unrepeatable quirks of human error that make every specimen unique. And that is why the 1945 wheat penny worth $6 million has become a symbol of how something so small can carry such enormous significance. And so as you explore your own coins and join the community of collectors, remember that what makes these coins so valuable is not just their rarity, but their ability to connect us with history, to remind us that perfection is not always the most prized quality. Sometimes it is the mistakes that make something priceless, and that truth is what makes the hunt so endlessly fascinating. So keep your eyes sharp, your curiosity alive, and your appreciation for detail strong, because the next great discovery could be waiting in your very hands. And who knows, maybe you will be the one to uncover the next 1945 wheat penny that sets a record at auction and captures headlines across the globe, proving once again that treasure can be found in the most ordinary of places, if only you know where and how to look. Next, 1952 wheat penny. Today we dive into one of the most fascinating stories in the world of rare coins, a story that takes us deep into the mysteries of the 1952 wheat penny, a coin that has shocked collectors and historians alike by reaching an unbelievable value of $5 million because of the incredible combination of minting errors, striking mistakes, and unique anomalies that turned what was once a humble cent mint for everyday circulation into a priceless treasure worth big money. And as we explore the journey of this coin, we will uncover why errors that might seem tiny or insignificant to an untrained eye can actually transform a penny into one of the most valuable pieces of American numismatic history. So sit back and join us on this exciting deep dive into every detail of the 1952 wheat penny, starting from its origins in the Denver Mint, its production process, the circumstances of post-war America when it was struck, and the many types of mistakes that could have occurred on its journey from a simple copper planchet to a world-renowned multi-million-dollar collectible. because it is in those fascinating mistakes where the true value lies, and understanding them requires patience, research, and a passion for uncovering the mysteries of minting. So let's begin by considering the year 1952 itself, a time when the United States was emerging from World War II and entering the Korean War era, and the mint was under pressure to produce large quantities of coins to satisfy the growing needs of commerce, with the Denver Mint in particular tasked with producing hundreds of millions of pennies, and in such high-pressure environments, it was not unusual for errors to slip through the cracks, which is why collectors today are always eager to examine coins from this period for anomalies. And the 1952 Wheat Penny is the perfect example of how multiple types of mistakes can overlap to create a once-in-a-lifetime rarity, because one of the first things that makes this coin so special is the possibility of doubled dies, where the hub used to impress the design onto the die shifted slightly during the striking process, resulting in noticeable doubling on features such as the date, the letters in Liberty, or the motto "In God We Trust." And when these doubled dies occur, especially on a coin as old as 1952, they become highly desirable because they represent a major mechanical mishap that still managed to slip past quality control. And in the case of our $5,1952 D penny, experts believe strong doubling can be observed, magnifying its rarity. But that is not all, because another class of errors comes from repunched mint marks, known as RPMs, and in the 1950s, it was common for mint marks like the D for Denver to be hand-punched onto each working die, which meant there were frequent chances for the mint mark to be punched more than once and slightly misaligned, producing varieties like D over D, D over horizontal D, or even overlapping mint marks that created strange distortions, and collectors prize these repunched mint marks because they show the human element of the minting process, and the $5 million 1952 D Wheat Penny is thought to display one of the boldest and clearest RPMs ever found, adding yet another layer of uniqueness. And then we must also consider striking errors such as off-center strikes, broad strikes, clipped planchets, and die cracks, all of which can transform an ordinary coin into a numismatic gem. And the most valuable examples are those with dramatic but still visually appealing mistakes, such as a coin struck 10 to 20% off-center while still retaining the full date and mint mark, or a coin with massive die breaks creating what collectors call cut errors that give the coin a distinct appearance. And in the story of the 1952 D penny that sold for $5 million, we find reports that the coin combines more than one striking error, perhaps an off-center strike alongside visible die cracks that trace across Lincoln's portrait and the wheat stalks on the reverse, making it not only historically significant but visually stunning to error enthusiasts. And what makes this coin's journey even more exciting is the composition itself, since in 1952 pennies were struck primarily in a copper alloy of 95% copper and 5% tin and zinc. But occasionally planchets from other denominations or leftover experimental pieces could accidentally be fed into the presses, resulting in off-metal errors, such as pennies struck on silver dime planchets, nickel planchets, or even foreign coin blanks that happened to be in the Denver Mint at the time. And such off-metal errors are exceedingly rare, with each discovery shaking the numismatic community. And it is believed that the $5 million 1952 D penny may indeed have been struck on an unusual planchet, perhaps a transitional blank or a foreign coin blank, further increasing its rarity and intrigue. And when you combine doubled dies, repunched mint marks, striking errors, die cracks, and a possible off-metal planchet into one single coin, you have the recipe for a masterpiece of error collecting. And that is why collectors have fought fiercely at auctions, driving the price higher and higher until it reached that astonishing figure of $5 million. And to truly understand why someone would pay so much for a penny, we must also appreciate the psychology of rarity, because in coin collecting it is not just about owning a piece of metal but about holding history, a unique artifact that no one else can possess. And in the case of the 1952 D Wheat Penny, the combination of circumstances that produced its errors could never be repeated, making it literally one of a kind. And rarity drives desire, desire drives bidding wars, and bidding wars push prices into the millions, especially when wealthy collectors and institutions compete. And this is how what started as a humble cent in the pocket of an American in 1952 has become a legend worth $5 million today. But beyond the monetary value, this story reminds us of the incredible possibilities hidden in ordinary change. Because every coin in your pocket could carry secrets, mistakes, or anomalies waiting to be discovered, and history has shown us time and again that coins thought to be worthless can surprise the world. From the 1943 copper pennies to the 1955 double-die Lincoln cents, and now the 1952 Wheat penny joins that hall of fame, inspiring collectors to look more closely at their change, to search every penny for the slightest imperfection, because that imperfection might just be the key to a fortune. And if we look closely at the details of the $5 million 1952 penny, we see how every layer of its story is woven into the broader narrative of American minting, from the manual punching of mint marks that gave rise to RPMs, to the hubbing processes that created double dies, to the mechanical stress on dies that caused cracks and cuds, to the rare chance of striking on the wrong metal. And all of these together form a tapestry of mistakes that paradoxically make the coin perfect in its imperfection. And that is why collectors treasure it, and that is why it has achieved such a monumental value. And the tale of this coin is far from over, because as time passes and fewer error coins remain in top condition, the value of such rarities can only climb higher, meaning that one day the $5 million price tag may seem like a bargain. And so as we conclude this deep exploration of the 1952 Wheat penny, let it be a reminder to everyone watching that history hides in plain sight, sometimes in the smallest objects we take for granted, and that careful attention, passion, and curiosity can turn an ordinary penny into an extraordinary treasure. So keep looking through your coins. Keep learning about the fascinating world of numismatics. And who knows, maybe the next multi-million-dollar rarity is already in your collection waiting to be discovered. Next, 1951 Wheat penny. Thank you for joining us today as we dive into the fascinating world of rare coins where small pieces of copper from the past turn into treasures worth millions. And in this episode, we are going to take a deep look into one of the most extraordinary coins that has stunned collectors and shocked the numismatic market, the 1951 Wheat penny. A coin that looks ordinary at first glance, but has sold for an unbelievable $2 million because of its combination of errors, mistakes, and anomalies that make it one of the most sought-after rarities in the world. And today we are going to unravel all of the fascinating details surrounding this coin, what exactly makes it so valuable, how these mistakes happen, and why collectors are willing to pay such astronomical prices for something that originally had a face value of just 1 cent. So get ready because this is going to be an incredible journey through history, minting technology, and the unexpected quirks that turn a tiny piece of copper into a legendary treasure. And as we begin, let's remember that the Wheat Penny series itself holds a very special place in American history, since it was minted from 1909 through 1958 carrying the image of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse and the iconic wheat stalks on the reverse. And throughout these decades millions of coins were struck, but only a handful carry the kind of story that makes them worth life-changing sums. And the 1951 Wheat penny belongs to that elite group, minted in San Francisco during a time when the United States Mint was churning out coins for everyday commerce. But the conditions at the mint, the machinery, and the die preparation all created opportunities for strange and valuable mistakes. So when we talk about a 1951 penny fetching $2 million, we are not simply talking about a common coin, but one that has survived with features so unique that it separates itself from the countless others produced in that year. Now let's explore the possible errors that make this penny so famous. Because in numismatics the value often lies in the anomalies, beginning with double dies, which are among the most famous errors in the entire Wheat Penny series. A double die occurs when the die used to strike the coin is misaligned during the hubbing process, causing the details of the coin to appear doubled, especially in the date, lettering, or motto. And collectors go wild for strong double dies because they are rare and visually striking. Imagine a 1951 penny with the date showing a dramatic doubling, or the words, "In God We Trust," appearing in a ghost-like second impression. These kinds of features immediately skyrocket the desirability and value of a coin. And then there are repunched mint marks, which were especially common in San Francisco issues, since at that time mint marks were still hand-punched onto the dies. So it is not unusual to see variations like an S punched twice, slightly north or south, or even overlapping impressions, but in extremely rare cases, a repunched mint mark can be dramatic enough to make a coin stand out from all others. And if our $2 million example shows such a rare repunched S combined with other striking features, that could easily explain its astronomical value. Another possibility lies in off-center strikes, where a coin is struck without being properly centered in the press, leading to part of the design being missing and blank planchet space showing. And depending on how off-center the strike is, the value increases dramatically, especially when the date and mint mark remain visible. So imagine a 1951 Wheat Penny struck 50% off-center with crisp details and perfect visibility of the important features. That would be a dream coin for any collector. And let's not forget about die cracks, die breaks, and cuts, which are caused when the die itself becomes damaged or worn, leading to raised lines, lumps, or missing portions of the design. And far from being considered flaws, these kinds of mistakes fascinate collectors because they reveal the history of the minting process, and each one is unique. A 1951 Wheat Penny with an enormous die break or a dramatic cut covering part of the reverse could become a one-of-a-kind showpiece worth a fortune. And then we also have to consider planchet errors. The blank pieces of metal that are fed into the presses sometimes have imperfections, such as being clipped, improperly prepared, or even struck on the wrong metal and wrong planchet. Errors are among the most spectacular, since they produce coins with the wrong weight, color, and composition. Imagine a 1951 Wheat Penny struck on a dime planchet, nickel planchet, or even a foreign coin planchet. The rarity of such a mistake combined with its dramatic visual difference would make it a holy grail for collectors. And beyond these individual errors, we must remember that condition also plays a massive role in value. Because while millions of 1951 Wheat Pennies were made, almost all of them entered circulation where they were used daily, worn down, scratched, and eventually replaced by newer coins. But a handful survived in pristine condition, tucked away by collectors or accidentally forgotten in rolls. And when an error coin like this survives in gem mint state with blazing red luster, it becomes even more desirable, and the combination of rarity, condition, and error explains how such a small piece of copper can bring in $2 million at auction. Now let's think about the broader context, because the Wheat Penny series has produced other legendary rarities like the 1909 SVDB, the 1914D, the 1922 No D, and the 1955 Double Die. And when we compare the 1951's error penny to these giants, we see how it stands among the elite. Not just because of its rarity, but because it represents a perfect storm of conditions at the San Francisco Mint: mistakes made during die preparation, possible off-center striking, maybe a repunched mint mark, and perhaps even a wrong planchet strike, all combining into one coin that has become legendary. And collectors love stories. The story of how this coin survived, how it escaped detection at the mint, how it passed through hands unnoticed, and how eventually a sharp-eyed collector discovered its true nature. These stories add a human dimension to the numismatic world and make each rare coin not just a piece of metal, but a time capsule carrying with it the history of its era. So as we continue to explore the 1951 Wheat Penny, we realize that it is more than just copper. It is history, error, art, and chance all rolled into one. And for the lucky collector who owns it, It is not just about the $2 million price tag, but about owning a piece of history that no one else can replicate. And that is what makes numismatics so fascinating. Because every coin has a story, but only a few have the kind of story that can change lives. And this 1951's Wheat Penny is one of them. Now, as we dive deeper, let us consider what might have happened at the San Francisco Mint in 1951. The presses were working hard, dies were being used past their prime, mint workers were punching mint marks by hand, and quality control was nowhere near the technological standards we have today. So mistakes slipped through, and occasionally those mistakes became treasures. Imagine being a worker back then and seeing thousands of coins spill out of the presses each day, never realizing that one among them would one day be worth $2 million. And this possibility that such treasures exist hidden among ordinary coins is what drives so many collectors today to search through pocket change, rolls of pennies, or old jars in hopes of finding the next great rarity. And while the chances are slim, history shows us that discoveries still happen. Coins thought to be unknown suddenly surface. And that is why the 1951's Wheat Penny serves not just as a symbol of rarity, but as an inspiration to collectors everywhere. And the beauty of it is that the possibilities are endless because errors can take so many forms. From small die chips that create tiny raised bumps to massive blunders where entire parts of the design are missing or doubled, and each variety has its own charm. But the ones that combine dramatic visual appeal with rarity are the ones that break records. And so when we say that a 1951's Wheat Penny is worth $2 million, we are not simply repeating a number, we are acknowledging the incredible journey of a coin from a minting mistake to a legendary collectible, a journey fueled by history, chance, and human passion. And as long as people continue to value history and rarity, this coin will remain an icon. So keep your eyes open, check your change, because you never know when the next $1 million penny might appear in your hands. Last 1944 Wheat Penny. We deep dive into the world of rare and valuable coins, where the smallest details and the tiniest mistakes can transform an ordinary piece of change into a multi-million-dollar treasure. And today, we are going to explore one of the most fascinating and legendary coins in American history, the 1944 Wheat Penny, which has shocked the collecting world with its staggering value of up to $3 million because of the extraordinary errors and mistakes that occurred during its minting, and the possibilities that make it so valuable are so intriguing that both collectors and historians are constantly on the hunt for more examples to study. So buckle up, because this story is not just about a coin, it is about history, luck, rarity, and the amazing reality that something you might once have overlooked in your pocket could actually change your life forever. The 1944 Wheat Penny stands out because it was minted during a critical moment in American history. World War II was in full swing, and the United States Mint had shifted its production priorities. To help the war effort in 1943, pennies were made from steel coated with zinc instead of the usual copper, because copper was needed for ammunition, shell casings, and other military supplies. But this change created one of the most famous transitions in American coinage. And when 1944 came, the Mint decided to return to copper using recycled shell casings from the war. However, a small number of leftover 1943 steel planchets somehow got stuck in the coin presses and were struck with the 1944 Wheat Penny design, creating one of the most legendary mint errors of all time, the 1944 steel Wheat Penny. This incredible error is one of the rarest mistakes ever made by the Mint, and only a handful of authentic examples exist today, making it a dream coin for collectors and auction houses alike. But the story doesn't end there, because the 1944 pennies struck in copper also had their share of rare varieties, double die errors, off-center strikes, clipped planchets, and other unusual mistakes that increased their rarity and desirability to an astonishing level. The mere existence of a 1944 Wheat Penny struck on a steel planchet has pushed auction prices to the multi-million-dollar range, because collectors are willing to pay any price to own a piece of this numismatic legend. And when you realize that the average person in 1944 would never have noticed these details. It becomes even more magical to think that a coin accidentally made an error could decades later become a prize worth millions. Now let's dig deeper into why the 1944 steel penny is worth so much money. First is its rarity, with possibly less than 30 genuine examples confirmed by grading companies across all mints. Rarity drives value in the coin market, and when rarity is combined with historical context, the price skyrockets. Second is its condition. Collectors know that coins that survive in higher grades with less wear, scratches, or damage are always more valuable, and since most pennies circulated heavily, it is extremely rare to find one preserved in mint state condition, which makes those pieces even more valuable. Third is the sheer fascination of the error itself. Because the 1944 steel wheat penny should not even exist, it is an impossible coin created purely by mistake. And those types of anomalies are exactly what collectors dream of owning, because they are tangible evidence of the unpredictability of history. Add to that the emotional connection of owning something that dates back to the 1940s, the wartime era when Americans were sacrificing and working together, and you can see why people are willing to pay staggering amounts at auctions. The million-dollar sales figures are not exaggerated either. Major auction houses have confirmed record-breaking results, with 1944 wheat pennies fetching hundreds of thousands, and even crossing into the million-dollar range depending on condition and provenance, and in some cases specific coins with impeccable pedigrees have sold for amounts approaching $3 million, which cements their place as one of the most valuable Lincoln cents ever discovered. Now, beyond the famous steel planchet error, the 1944 wheat penny also contains other fascinating mistakes and varieties that collectors chase relentlessly. For example, double die errors occur when the die used to strike the coin has been improperly prepared, causing doubling in the letters, numbers, or design elements. Some 1944 pennies show noticeable doubling on Liberty or the motto "In God We Trust," which adds substantial value to the coin. Then there are off-center strikes where the coin was not properly aligned with the dies during striking, resulting in part of the design missing. These can range from minor shifts to dramatic off-center strikes that make the coin instantly recognizable and valuable. There are also clipped planchet errors where a portion of the coin is missing because of a misfeed in the press. These irregular shapes make the coin stand out and increase collector interest. Every error tells a story about what went wrong at the mint that day, and each mistake adds another layer of intrigue to the 1944 wheat penny family. And if we step back to look at the bigger picture, it's not just the errors themselves, but the combination of rarity, historical context, and collector demand that pushes values to such astronomical levels. People want to own coins that nobody else has, coins that defy logic, coins that make headlines, and the 1944 wheat penny checks every single box. Think about it, a tiny 1-cent coin designed to be the most common everyday object somehow transforms into an artifact that commands millions of dollars. This contrast is what captures the imagination of millions and fuels the ongoing treasure hunt, because the truth is that many of these rare error coins were never intentionally saved. They slipped through the cracks of circulation, which means there is always a chance that one could still be hiding in an old jar, a drawer, a collection, or a forgotten box in someone's attic, and that possibility keeps the dream alive for collectors everywhere. If you were to find a genuine 1944 steel wheat penny today in your pocket change or coin jar, you could literally become a millionaire overnight. And that excitement has fueled countless stories of people searching through rolls of pennies from banks or coin shops, hoping to strike it rich. And while the odds are small, the existence of even a handful of known examples proves it is not impossible. That thrill is what makes coin collecting so addictive. The hunt for something extraordinary, the patience to examine every detail, the excitement of discovering something others have overlooked, and the ultimate reward of holding history in your hands, worth far more than its face value. The 1944 wheat penny embodies everything that collectors love about the hobby: rarity, beauty, history, error, and value, all combined in one coin, and that's why it continues to make headlines decades after it was minted. Imagine owning a coin that was created by accident yet has been celebrated and studied by experts for generations. Imagine taking a penny that was once spent on a stick of gum and now commanding a multi-million-dollar price tag at auction. This is the magic of numismatics, the art of transforming metal into history and history into fortune. And so the 1944 wheat penny, whether it is a rare steel error, a double die variety, or an off-center strike, remains one of the greatest stories in American coinage, a symbol of how mistakes can become masterpieces and how ordinary people can stumble upon extraordinary treasures. And if you are inspired by this story and fascinated by the idea that even the humblest coin could change your life, then make sure you like this video and subscribe to the channel for more amazing discoveries about rare coins, errors, and the hidden fortune that might be waiting in your pocket change, because the journey of the 1944 wheat penny, worth $3 million because of its errors and mistakes, is just one chapter in the incredible history of money and collecting.